Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting.
Hey.
Today, AI triggers a massive cybersecurity market crash, European regulators unexpectedly greenlight autonomous driving, and humanity makes a fiery 25,000-mile-per-hour return to Earth from the moon.
Yeah, casual Tuesday, right?
Right. So our mission for you today is to sift through this raw digital newswire, ranging from the absolute frontier of AI models all the way to deep space exploration.
Because we really need to uncover the second-order effects of these massive technological leaps.
Exactly. We're looking at what actually happens to markets when software starts autonomously finding its own structural flaws,
How regulators are adapting to autonomy, yeah.
And of course, the undeniable cultural vibe shift as deep space travel returns to the mainstream.
I mean, the through line here is disruption of the status quo. In every one of these stories, you've got an incumbent system.
Whether that's a billion-dollar security perimeter or a legacy automaker.
Right, or just our collective apathy towards space. It's all being violently reorganized by new engineering capabilities, so we need to track for you, the listener, who stands to lose money, who gets regulated, and how these shifts completely rewire reality.
So let's start by tracking the money, because the lead story on the Business Wire today is just, well, it's a localized market earthquake.
Oh, it's brutal.
I'm looking at a post from @WatcherGuru, and the numbers are just ugly. Cloudflare stock, ticker symbol NET, it just crashed 13%.
Whoa!
Yeah, dropping down to around $168. And the catalyst wasn't like an earnings miss or a traditional hack.
No, it was Anthropic.
Right, Anthropic announced a new AI cybersecurity model called Claude Mythos. And they're restricting this model to defensive use only under this thing called Project Glasswing.
Which sounds very sci-fi.
Very. They're locking it down because Mythos can autonomously discover zero-day vulnerabilities in foundational systems like Linux and OpenBSD.
And look, the architecture of that panic makes total sense when you break down the mechanics. Cloudflare, and honestly, much of the incumbent cybersecurity sector, they rely heavily on a perimeter defense model.
Right, like a firewall.
Exactly. They operate by identifying known threats, creating signatures for them, and blocking traffic that matches those malicious signatures.
It's essentially like a bouncer checking a VIP list of known criminals.
That's a perfect analogy. But a zero-day vulnerability is a software flaw completely unknown to the creators. There is no signature for it.
So the bouncer has no idea who to look for.
Right. If you have an autonomous AI agent that can infinitely generate novel, never-before-seen exploits, your perimeter defense is rendered entirely useless.
Oh, man.
The AI is basically constantly printing mathematically perfect, undetectable fake IDs. And that is why investors are just mashing the sell button on traditional security platforms.
Okay, but I would argue that panic is exactly what Anthropic is banking on to drive up their valuation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, David Sachs is waving a massive caution flag about the narrative we are being fed here. And honestly, I tend to agree with his cynicism.
Sachs is spot on with this.
He points out that Anthropic has this deeply ingrained history of utilizing scare tactics to create a fear premium around their models.
Like the 25% catastrophe estimate.
Exactly.
Right.
We saw this with their past warnings about Claude 4's deceptive behaviors and CEO Dario Amode's constant drumbeat about superhuman AI.
Yeah, it's a playbook.
It really feels like Anthropic is purposefully manipulating the market to make their models seem godlike, positioning themselves as the sole saviors capable of keeping the genie in the bottle.
It's a classic Silicon Valley maneuver, right? Marketing through apocalyptic hypotheticals.
Totally.
But we can ground this by looking at the actual technical reality of zero-day hunting. The AI isn't performing magic, it's just performing highly scaled grunt work.
Grunt work that humans just don't want to do.
Exactly. And PMD Domingos brings in this brilliant perspective from the legendary hacker George Hotz, who essentially just called Anthropic's bluff entirely.
Oh, what did Hotz say?
He offered to publicly release one zero-day vulnerability every single day until new large models arrive.
Wait, really? Every single day?
Yeah, he's exposing the underlying economics of cyber vulnerabilities.
Okay, so Hartz's argument completely demystifies the threat then. He points out that 0 days are actually remarkably easy to find in most legacy software if you just know where to look.
Right, they aren't mythically rare.
Exactly. The reason we don't see thousands of them deployed every day is an economic and legal bottleneck. Human hackers have to weigh the return on investment.
Because digging into decades-old Linux kernel code to find a bug that might get patched tomorrow is incredibly tedious.
And exploiting it is literally a federal crime.
Yeah.
So finding them legally is poorly incentivized compared to just taking a high-paying tech salary or, collecting official bug bounties.
Right.
Humans could find these all day long if the economics were different. The AI simply doesn't require a salary, it doesn't sleep, and it operates entirely outside of human incentive structures.
And that lack of human friction is precisely what makes the capability jump real, regardless of whether Anthropic is hyping it up.
Yeah, the capability's there.
Scaling 01 actually coined this cultural reaction, the AI psychosis.
That's a mouthful.
Right. But it describes this polarized environment where skeptics are so desperate to dismiss AI as hype that they completely ignore the hard mechanical data.
The benchmarks.
Exactly. Scaling 01 points out that Claude Mythos hit an astonishing 93.9% on SWE Bench.
Wow.
And for context, for you listening, SWE Bench doesn't just test an AI on multiple choice trivia, it evaluates the model's ability to successfully resolve complex, real-world software engineering issues pulled directly from GitHub entirely autonomously.
Okay, 93% is wild.
When a model clears 93%, it is fundamentally rewriting the threat landscape. Period.
Right, the SWE bench numbers are staggering. But deploying that capability out in the wild introduces friction that those benchmarks just fail to capture.
Oh, for sure. Real life is messy.
Very. Look at the real-world deployment data TRQ-212 posted regarding Anthropic's new Claude Code feature, /Ultra plan.
Oh, yeah, I saw this thread.
Yeah. So this is a feature where Claude builds an implementation plan for a user on the web, which you can edit and run directly in your terminal. On paper, it sounds like flawless automation.
Flawless, right?
But in practice, TRQ-212 notes that users are having to rerun the planning mode about 5 times just to catch basic missing edge cases.
Because the mechanism failing there is the context window during single pass generation.
Precisely. It's like hiring a genius architect who designs this breathtaking 50-story skyscraper, but because they possess zero short-term memory, they forget to include the plumbing by the time they reach the top floor.
That is a very expensive oversight.
Right. The AI's single-pass generation loses the context required for nuanced, interconnected edge cases. So if our frontier AI still requires a human developer to handhold it through 5 iterations just to build a functional web plan,
then the narrative that it's on the precipice of executing automated, unstoppable cyber warfare seems a bit premature.
highly premature.
And the contrast there is just striking. I mean, the model has the brute force pattern recognition to find a deeply buried Linux flaw from 1998.
But it lacks the contextual persistence to build a modern web app on the first try without hallucinating.
Exactly. And that limitation brings us from the frontier of AI capabilities directly down into the very human, mundane reality of software development.
The trenches.
Right, because while the broader market is melting down over existential cyber threats, actual developers are literally arguing over UI aesthetics.
Well, this was so funny to see on the timeline. The official Visual Studio Code account, @Code, announced their new default themes for 2026.
Huge news.
Sarcasm noted. But yeah, we are getting VS Code Lite and VS Code Dark, which automatically sync to match your operating system settings.
Okay.
And the reception in the replies is completely polarized. Some users are thrilled by the clean, modern auto-sync, while others are complaining it's too bright, too stark, and they're threatening to just abandon the platform entirely for JetBrains.
I mean, it seems trivial compared to zero-day hacks, but UI design at this scale is essentially an exercise in cognitive ergonomics.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Developers are staring at these high-contrast environments for 12 hours a day, The psychological and productivity impacts of UI design, like combating developer fatigue, minimizing cognitive load, reducing eye strain, are paramount.
Right, because the human is still in the loop.
Exactly. The friction we just discussed with AI needing constant human oversight means the human is still the central bottleneck in software engineering. If a visually abrasive code editor degrades human focus, the entire development pipeline slows down.
It grounds the abstraction of code right back into physical human exhaustion. And that focus on the physical-human interface is the perfect bridge to our next development. We're taking the trust we place in autonomous code on our screens and applying it to moving physical mass out in the real world.
This is where things get really interesting.
Sawyer Barrett posted a monumental regulatory update today. The Dutch regulators, the RDW, have officially approved Tesla's full self-driving supervised version for use in the Netherlands.
Finally.
Yeah, this comes after over a year and a half of intense testing on both closed tracks and public roads.
And the mechanism of approval here completely flips the traditional narrative around autonomous driving.
How so?
Because the RDW explicitly stated in their official authorization that the Tesla system is safer than other driver assistance
Oh.
tools. But the reasoning wasn't because the AI drives flawlessly. It was specifically because of the continuous, strict monitoring of the driver's eyes and hands via the interior cabin camera and the steering wheel torque sensors.
Ah, so it's watching you.
Constantly. Activities like reading or using a phone are strictly prohibited and actively punished by the system. The regulator didn't approve the AI's ability to navigate perfectly. They approved the AI's ability to ruthlessly force the human to pay attention while it navigates.
Wow. So it is a hypervigilant compliance engine. The car is effectively babysitting the driver's cognitive load, ensuring the human remains the ultimate failsafe.
Exactly. And if you are holding traditional European auto stocks right now, this specific RDW approval mechanism should be setting off major alarm bells in your portfolio.
Because the mode is gone.
The regulatory moat just evaporated. The Netherlands is widely recognized as the stringent regulatory gateway to the broader European Union.
Right.
Traditional automakers like Volkswagen and BMW, they've largely operated under the strategic assumption that sluggish EU bureaucracy would buy them like a 5-year grace period to catch up to Tesla's software lead.
They thought they had time.
They assumed European regulators would demand absolute perfection from the driving AI itself. Instead, Tesla found a backdoor by proving their system enforces absolute perfection from the human driver.
Oh man, the legacy automakers are suddenly facing imminent software disruption in their home territory.
They are blindsided.
So we are seeing autonomous systems rewrite the rules of the road, but scaling that trust from a European highway up to the vacuum of space is an entirely different beast.
Just a bit.
Today, humanity is navigating the ultimate hostile environment. Artemis II is returning from its 10-day lunar flyby.
It's incredible.
Nick Sorter, Eric Eldoff, and Roz Alerts have been providing this rapid-fire sequence of telemetry updates. Mission Control just gave the official J-go for the return burn.
What's happening?
The Orion spacecraft, which is currently sitting 34,900 nautical miles out in the void, is barreling toward our atmosphere at an incomprehensible 25,000 miles per hour.
And you have to understand, the physics of that reentry are just punishing. At 25,000 miles per hour, the spacecraft isn't just cutting through the air, it is violently compressing the atmospheric gases in front of it, which creates a literal plasma wave.
A plasma wave.
Yeah. That crucial heat shield has to endure temperatures peaking at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, bleeding off orbital velocity down to just 19 miles per hour before the main parachutes deploy for splashdown.
And that splashdown is happening off the coast of San Diego, near the USS John P. Murtha, right?
Correct.
And inside that insane engineering crucible is this deeply human tradition. The official at NASA account shared that Mission Control woke up Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, Christina Kochum, and Jeremy Hansen for their final day in space with a song.
Let me guess, something classic.
Yep, Run to the Water by the band Live.
Oh, that's perfect.
It's this decades-old tradition of broadcasting personalized audio across the void while a crew prepares to essentially ride a man-made meteor back to the surface.
And the cultural resonance of that moment is translating across demographics that typically completely ignore aerospace engineering.
Yeah, Popbase was posting about it.
Exactly. Pop Days, this massive pop culture account with millions of followers that usually just tracks celebrity gossip and chart data, is currently tracking the Orion capsule glowing from atmospheric friction at 13,000 miles per hour.
Which is wild to see on the timeline next to Popstar updates.
Right. When a pop culture aggregator treats a lunar return with the same urgency as a massive music industry drop, space exploration has definitively recaptured the mainstream zeitgeist.
Space is back. But, of course, the skepticism never left.
It never does.
The engagement on these viral posts is fractured. A vocal contingent is questioning the massive capital expenditure, asking that classic 1960s question. Why are we burning billions of dollars to fly around a dead rock when we have systemic crises here on Earth?
And it's a fair question for people to ask, but Akash Gupta provided the definitive counterargument by illustrating the deep time perspective of lunar science.
The long game.
Exactly. He highlighted the enduring legacy of Apollo 11. Back in 1969, astronauts left a simple 2-foot-wide panel of retroreflectors on the lunar surface.
It's a panel of mirrors, basically.
Yeah, it possesses no internal power source, no wiring, requires zero maintenance. Yet, scientists in New Mexico are still, over half a century later, firing lasers at that exact panel.
That's so cool.
The photons travel 239,000 miles, hit that mirror, and bounce back to Earth in roughly 2.5 seconds.
And that specific, continuous data stream proves definitively that the moon is drifting away from Earth at a rate of 3.8 centimeters every single year.
Right.
We would not have that baseline understanding of orbital mechanics without physical hardware installed by human hands.
Never.
Akash Gupta also details the Apollo seismometers. When NASA deliberately impacted spent spacecraft components into the lunar surface, the seismometers captured the moon ringing like a bell for hours.
Which is so eerie. And the mechanics of that ringing reveal the moon's internal structure. I mean, Earth is dynamic. We have vast oceans and shifting tectonic plates that quickly dampen seismic waves.
It absorbs the shock.
Exactly. But the moon is geologically dead, rigid, and bone dry. Without water or active fault lines to absorb the kinetic energy, shockwaves just bounce uninterrupted through the mantle.
Hence the ringing.
Right. That hardware allowed us to map deep quakes, shallow quakes, and even thermal quakes triggered simply by the intense heat of the sun hitting the freezing surface. The scientific dividends pay out for generations.
And that detail about the intense heat of the sun hitting the lunar surface, it actually provides the underlying architecture for everything we have tracked today.
It connects it all.
Yeah, X-Freeze posted this necessary reminder of the ultimate scale we are operating within. The sun generates 3.8 times 10 to the 26th power watts of energy.
Unfathomable numbers.
Truly. And it accounts for 99.8% of all the mass in our solar system.
It really forces a massive perspective shift for you to consider. Every technological leap we discuss today is merely a different method of harnessing that singular reactor.
Oh, yeah.
Wind, hydro, and solar infrastructure capture its current output. The fossil fuels powering those legacy European automakers and the vast energy grids required to train Anthropic's Claude Mythos are just ancient subterranean batteries.
Just sunlight captured and stored by organic matter millions of years ago.
Exactly. Whether we are burning ancient sunlight to power our algorithms or utilizing orbital mechanics to slingshot a capsule around the moon, our entire technological stack is entirely dependent on that specific star.
So, based on all these cross-currents we've synthesized today, we have to project where these shifting systems land tomorrow.
All right, prediction time. The immediate market reaction tomorrow is going to see legacy cybersecurity stocks attempt a dead cat bounce.
A temporary recovery.
Yeah, a slight recovery in price following today's steep crash as retail investors buy the dip and reality sets and that Anthropic's zero-day capabilities still face massive deployment hurdles, as we talked about.
Right. What about the auto market?
Over in Brussels, expect a surge of aggressive lobbying from the German auto cartels desperately trying to slow down the regulatory momentum Tesla just achieved in the Netherlands.
They're going to panic.
Oh, big time. And finally, the broader space economy is positioned for a massive influx of retail capital tomorrow morning, driven entirely by the cultural adrenaline of the Artemis splashdown dominating social media algorithms.
I could definitely see that happening. We spent this time tracking autonomous code ripping through cybersecurity perimeters, vehicles that force human compliance on our highways, and the sheer physics of re-entering Earth's atmosphere.
A lot of ground covered.
But here is the real underlying challenge for you to consider moving forward. As our software evolves at the speed of light and our physical hardware pushes the boundaries of the solar system, are our human institutions, the regulators, the markets, the lawmakers, actually equipped to handle a world where the most important discoveries happen faster than a human can even hit refresh?
I mean, when the machines can build and break anything, how do we teach a system exactly what not to do? That is the defining engineering bottleneck of our generation.
We'll be back tomorrow to decode the next wave. Stay sharp, and thanks for tuning in to the Daily Vibecasting.
See ya.